Hi everyone, my name is Lori, my nickname is Rini, and I'd like to welcome you to Rini Bopini Creations. If this is the first time you stopped by and checked out my channel, I'd like to offer you a very warm welcome. I do hope you like what you see, and if you do, please give it a thumbs up, consider subscribing and sharing with your fellow crafters. For my wonderful subscribers, welcome back. I think you're really going to like what I have in store for you today. So today we're doing an upcycle, and we are making, if this works, what's up here in the corner, and wait till you see what it started as. Now I'm aware that when you do an upcycle, everybody doesn't have the same piece, but I'm really hoping it will inspire you, give you ideas if you've got a little piece that you really like, but maybe it's seen better days, or you find one of those great finds on the side of the road, as us crafters like to do. So I really hope you like it. Stick around, see how it works out through the video, and I'll see you at the end. Alright, so you can see this has definitely seen better days. It was a side of the road find, actually. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to sand it down. I'm not going to be super fussy about it though, because I want it to kind of look worn and rustic. But we are going to, take off some of the strips. Now this bit, we don't need to worry about hardly at all. I'm going to take off like the loose pieces and stuff, just to get rid of them, but this is going to be completely hidden, so we don't need to worry too much about this bit. But the legs, I'm just going to give a quick wipe down and a quick sand. So I just grabbed whatever sandpaper I happen to have in my stash. This happens to be 220, but I don't think even that's a big thing to worry about because of what we're going to do to it. I've got it all sanded, and I took a wet cloth and just wiped it all down. So now what I'm going to do is give the legs and the bars a coat of, I've got this cinnamon brown paint that just came from the dollar store, and just a cheap sponge brush. So I'm going to give it all a coat of that. Okay, so we've got a couple of good coats of the brown on there. So now the next part I'm kind of going to do in sections. So we're going to do the crackle effect, and so I have this crackle from Folk Art. Now you can leave it on to dry, but if you go over it while it's still wet in your other color, the cracks are going to be bigger. So I'm going to do it in sections so I can go over it while it's still, you don't want it wet, but you do want it definitely tacky. And then I'm just going to use this white, same dollar store white paint, acrylic, because it will match my deck, which is where I want it. So we're going to start with the crackle medium, of course, and just a regular brush. And again, you don't have to go right to the bottom, because we are going to cover up some of that because it's not in good shape. But if you've got a stool that you're using, or a table or whatever, and your ends are nice, you can go right to the bottom if you wanted to. So I'm just going to do like a leg and a rung, and then I'm going to use the white. And I put my other paintbrush out of reach. Alright, paintbrush, that's handy. Actually, Now when you're doing the crackle medium, you don't want to go over your paint too many times or you will take off big chunks. Now maybe that's a look you're okay with, then certainly do it. But if you really make a mess of it and a big chunk comes off, wait for it to dry before you go over it again. Otherwise you'll just take off more paint. Now you can already see the crackle is really doing its thing, and it's big crackle as opposed to if you let it dry, that it's considerably smaller cracks. And so because this is a piece of furniture and a bigger piece, I really wanted the bigger cracks on this. If I'm doing a smaller piece, I will often let it dry and do it that way, but for this piece, definitely wanted the bigger cracks. So you can definitely see the crackle taking effect pretty quickly there. So I'll go ahead and finish this up and then we'll go on to the next bit. Okay, so to do the top of it, we're going to use some fluff. Now I have this kind, doesn't matter what kind you have, mine's already sort of in a thing that's going to fit pretty well for me. So I'm just going to use this. Let me double it up here. Should do. I'll just cut off the excess. Okay. And then I've got this beige fabric, so you can just use whatever you have that suits your color. And we're just going to start by stapling this down with the staple gun. Now you're always better, we can always trim it off if we have too much. So you want rather have too much than not enough. So I think I might do one more piece on here. Just sort of in the middle. I'm just going to tuck it in the middle actually. And nothing too fancy. You can see I'm going to do the centers on each side first. And I'm just going, I'm not stapling it down at the bottom, I'm stapling it fairly high because of what we're going to do with the other side. Okay, so now I've got this lace, it's an old lace crochet tablecloth, and I'm just going to put this right on top. You can skip this step, of course, if it's doesn't suit you. It doesn't have to be this kind of lace, it can be anything you have in your stash on hand. If you've got anything like this, I know that the dollar store does sell lace tablecloths most of the year. They're all in different colors depending on the season, so that's an option. but this was in my stash and I quite like it for the look I'm going for, so that's what I'm going to use. And we're just going to do the same thing with the, let me get that better, with the staple gun. So again, I'm going to find a deep center. Just watch it, try not to hit the staples you've already got in. So now we're just going to trim the edges. Okay, so it's all trimmed off, and then in keeping with some of the other things I've done in my deck, and to hide this real ugly, I've got this rope. I think I've used it, I can't even remember how many times. I paid 10 bucks for it at a yard sale or something. So it's just been one of my best finds I ever found. I use it all the time for everything. Sorry, I needed a lighter. So depending on the rope you use, you may or may not need to do this. I'm actually just gonna cut it back a bit because it's already kind of framed there. And this just melting the ends with the lighter to keep them together here. All right, and so this time I'm going to start from the bottom and not on the fabric. The reason for that is just it gives it something quick to grab to, and as we move on then it will be able to hold itself and the fabric, if that makes sense. So I'll just, so this part's a little bit tedious, just using plain old hot glue. Okay, so when you get to the fabric part, you're just going to do the same thing. You're just going to go right over top of it. And if you feel like you need to, you can put a little glue under the fabric as well, and I might just on the corners here, just to help hold it down. But then I'm just going to do exactly the same thing. And it's going to sort of stick to itself, if that makes sense. I'm going to... So I've put some glue sort of on the edge of the other rope as well. And we're just going to keep on going like that. So the last thing we're going to do is the bottoms. Now if your project, whatever you're doing, whether you're doing a stool or a table or anything like that, if you are all nice, kind of like this one is nice, you don't have to do this step, but mine is a little ratty. So just to hide it and to keep it kind of in keeping with the rope and stuff that I've got going on my deck and whatever, I'm just going to use this. This is dollar store, so it's cheap, 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 and you get a lot for your money. So I'm just going to start sort of in an inconspicuous place. And I'm just going to wrap the legs. And with this one, I'm not necessarily going to wrap or glue the whole thing. I'll glue the first few rows and then just kind of go random.